this meeting of the Advocacy and Engagement Committee to order. First item of business is to look at the minutes from December. Suggestions, additions, corrections to make. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Second. If anybody has one, all right, I'll second it.
Oh, I did, but that's.
Oh, you did? I didn't
I
hear it,
heard
I'm
Natasha.
sorry. Right, because I was talking. Typical. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Awesome. And I'm hoping tonight can be a fairly brief meeting. We don't have a whole lot of handouts to go through, but we do have stuff to talk. So community engagement, listening posts. Director Rowland, since we have a couple listening posts coming up between now and probably the next, or at least one of the listening posts will be before we meet again. What do you got? What do you got planned?
So, like we talked, Grant Wood is on the 27th, and Kim has taken care of connecting with them on that. So, that's from, I think we said 6 to 7:30, and they're gonna have tables set up for us. That'll be good, because I'd like us to be able to have small groups, at least for part of the meeting. Having been on the other side of the listening post, I found it very frustrating to only do the large group kind of discussion, because then the loudest voices kind of rule the day. So I'd like to have small groups for at least part of it if possible. And then the other one is February 4th at Northwest, and Kim's taking care of that one too. Same time.
Small groups again. For
That,
Barbie.
yep, that's what I'd like to do. My goal is that I want people to be able to have a voice. And you know, even if they're just speaking with their group, and then somebody takes notes or something, I just want us to hear from everyone. I don't want it to just be those who have enough guts to talk into the microphone. You know, because when it's a huge group, sometimes it's just, some people just aren't comfortable with that.
Latasha, or were you guys at the Hotel Beach Road thing back in 2013? We had a big, probably 300 people in the room at Hotel Beach Road. We did small groups, and it was very productive. I felt it was very good.
I don't think I did that one.
So, that
It was
was.
during our facilities master planning
Yeah.
process.
Okay.
Normally, we met over at the Parkview Church,
Parkview, yeah.
but we couldn't meet there, and so we went to Vitro for that meeting.
Okay.
Used that, what do they call it, that conference space?
Mhm.
or-
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's where we've done the Shine.
Yes, upstairs where we do the silver salute.
Silver salute.
Silver
there.
salute.
But it was, I don't disagree that
Mhm.
that a small group might be very helpful or conducive to people who might feel intimidated by 100 people, maybe not a group of 6 to 8 people. Is that what you're thinking for small
Yeah.
group size?
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Yep. Yep, I mean, of course, it'll depend how many people show up. And I think we'll be working with cafeteria tables, so I have no idea really how many will show up there.
They kind of asked me too, and I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of a crapshoot. Could be a lot. Could be.
So how did you structure that then?
I wasn't on the board yet. I was just, I
Okay.
actually just declared that I was running. So, but I mean, when we walked in, we were handed cards that said what table you should go
Okay.
to, which was helpful because I walked in with a group of 6 and we immediately got kind of randomized to 6 different tables.
Uh-huh.
It was good because then you had to talk to and had to meet people from, with widely varied opinions from other parts of the district. And again, this was when I was on the other side of the table, and then there was kind of after X number of minutes, kind of the small groups were poured out, which
Okay, which is
So-
what I was thinking, I like the numbers idea.
So
That's
however
really
many
good.
tables there are, if there's like 10 tables,
Mhm.
you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and it's just that simple. Go sit at the table that you were assigned to. And of course, you'll have some people doing the junior high, I got a 4 But for the most part, people follow directions and they understand the value of the exercise.
Okay. That's a good idea. All right, so yeah, that's the scoop.
Cool. Are we making any type of special arrangements for anybody at this point? I know that we had,
So I just asked, blanking on the name, Kristen, to add to the flyer that if there was a request for an interpreter to contact,
Jen.
yeah, who I
Yep.
can't remember who.
Yep.
But one thing I wondered about that is that, you know, if they can't read the flyer, they're not gonna know to
right,
request the interpreter, so I thought I would maybe reach out to the student family advocates about that and just say, hey, you know, can you make sure your families know about this, and would you please touch base if they wanna go and they need an interpreter?
okay. We had in the past, you know, paid an interpreter to be present, and sometimes that was very underutilized.
Usually it was.
Mhm.
But the value of having,
Well, that's why
Right.
one of the conversations was making sure we get the right interpreter, because what we usually do in that case then is we
Right.
presume, and we get an interpreter who usually is a Spanish interpreter,
Mhm.
but that may not be what we need. So
Mhm.
the
Right.
idea was, if you need an interpreter, let us know.
Right.
So that we get someone who actually has the right language proficiency,
Mhm.
as opposed to just taking a guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
ideas, Natasha?
I think the student family advocates is a great place to go
Mhm.
with that,
They'd
because
have a
if
feel
they
for it.
know, I'll give you a for instance. So we were worried that, we didn't know, but we were worried that transportation to forums was an issue.
Mhm.
We should have asked the student family advocates. We didn't. We just provided busing, which no one used. Which, had we actually gone to student family advocates like you're suggesting and asking first, hey, would transportation help? They likely would have told us no, because they would have talked to the parents and the parents would have said, we're not interested in it. So therefore, they'd have been more interested, which we did do later, which is come to them.
Mhm.
You're far more likely to get them to come if you're in their neighborhood, as opposed to
Mhm.
trying to get them to come to Parkview on a bus. When we went to Southeast and met, they came to Southeast,
Mhm.
because it's in the neighborhood. So that was one of those lessons we learned from making an assumption and then finding out that the bus pulled up and nobody got off.
Mhm. Yeah.
So-
Which is why I think it's great remaining at Grantwood, because, you know, that'll be accessible
Yeah.
for folks, and Northwest as well.
Right, and if the student family advocates know, then they can ask those questions.
So we had talked at the last meeting also about other locations for listening posts. We had talked about, I think it was Cole.
Mhm.
We have Cole Mobile Home Court, North Liberty. Do we have any ideas in North Liberty? I can't remember what we said on that. Or was it the library or rec center? It was the rec center in North Liberty that we were planning.
I think
That's
that
right.
makes more sense up there, yeah.
Okay, and then we were planning on doing something down in Hills as well, right? Coming up, I mean, not for this particular, not for the bell schedule specifically, but we were planning that. Okay. I just wondered, it's more probably.
Well,
my
and,
overview.
you know, I guess it's gonna come down to, are we gonna stick with one a month? Because when we're getting into the attendance stuff, I don't know how many meetings that's gonna involve.
That's a good point, Mark.
So I'm wondering if we should kind of table the community-based listening posts to some degree until we know what's happening with the attendance zones and listening posts, and then fit them in between there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because otherwise you either You
We're
get them to
gonna-
come to the listening post and they don't come to the discussion about the attendance areas or vice versa.
Mhm.
Or to your point earlier, you get the frequent flyers that come to both and you hear them twice.
And you get your board members really burnt out of listings.
Too.
Okay, so I just, and notes that I had to talk about was format. So we talked about small groups, facilitators. Has Director Lynch had some contact?
No, I have not reached out to him yet.
Okay.
And I need to do that. I would love it if he would facilitate like the big discussion. But Chris Liebig and I could provide some information, but I'll talk to him about that. But what I think would be great is if we do go with the small groups, that the board members that are present could just sort of, you know, just
Mingle.
kind of mingle and listen in. And that's what I've done at the task force meetings, is I've just sort of gone around and just kind of get a feel for what's going on at every table. And that's been very helpful. So I would love to see our board members that are able to be there do that, as opposed to just sitting down at one table and doing just listening to one group.
Yeah, when we had done, we had done some boundary stuff initially, in the very beginning back at North Central Junior High, there was a lot of board members mingling around, but I know that when it came to the final secondary discussion at Northwest, it was like all of us just up at the front, like birds on a wire. And I would rather have the mingling, because otherwise, you know, it's
Us and them.
us, them.
Mhm.
Okay. But, okay. So I know, so Latasha, I know you've been at some of these. What have you found helpful or frustrating with listening posts? I've seen your face in the crowd before. I've seen Lori's face in the crowd before.
No, I think some suggestions that are being put out are good suggestions. I mean, I don't know if I have anything to add or take away. I mean, people in the room talking, so I think having the small groups and stuff will be fine. I think we'll be successful.
Okay. Moving on. Legislative advocacy, just for folks who might not have known. Okay.
Yeah, please do.
Steve had a half hour, 35 minutes to be exact, with the Gov yesterday. I think he has something to share.
Yeah, I sent out the handout that he gave us, and I'll I think the terminology I used before was 2 weeks ago when this was initially proposed. I was ready to take up arms and go lay siege to Des Moines. I was not happy with the idea that the state penny was going to be carved up.
A little disappointed in Bill Sack getting behind that.
Well, you know, here's my thinking behind it. Now that I've had not only the opportunity to meet with the governor, but 2 hours driving back and forth with nothing else to think about, I did some reflection on it. So let me tell you what the governor had to say, which is why I think Bill Sack's behind it. So we've got a lawsuit from a couple of individuals about the water quality that's flowing into the water treatment plant in Des Moines, which is directly related to the Webster County farmland that's dumping all the nitrates into the water. What those individuals did, which was smart on their part, is they have taken it to federal court. So the result could very well be that the federal court issues some mandates which have statewide implications. Everything from cover crops, buffer strips on waterways, all kinds of things which would take a lot of tillable land out of agriculture, would drive up costs for farmers on those acres that are still available, drive down the value of property, which would impact property taxes, drive down income, which would impact revenue from SAVE. So there's a lot of ripple effects behind it. So I think that's why The governor is all fired up about it. I think that's why Tom Vilsack is behind him on this. And what I told the admin team today was, my 2-hour reflection on the drive back is the devil you know better than the one you don't. And the reason I say that is because starting as long as 3 years ago, there have been a lot of other special interests that have queued up and said, hey, we'd like a bite out of the silo, the save tax, community colleges, the transportation fund for roads and bridges before the gas tax got passed. I mean, worthy causes, that I'm not saying are not deserving, but that's one of the reasons, if you talk to Bob Dvorsky, Dave Jacoby, Mary Masher, why they've been reluctant to address the sunset issue, because they were worried that as soon as the sunset came up in legislature, then everybody was going to want their bite out of it. So I raise that as an issue because this may forestall any of the rest of those from getting a bite at it. And you can actually look at this from one of two directions. It either opens the door, so not lots of other groups can try to take a bite out of it. Keep in mind they do have to get both sides of the legislature to agree to it and the governor to sign on it. So one argument could be made, you're opening the door for others to take a bite at it. Another could be made that you are opening the door and then putting up a pretty stiff wall around you because this legislation goes to 2049. And so if you've got to dance with somebody, dancing with water quality when they're going to give you 88, 89 cents out of every dollar might not be the worst thing in the world. Now here, and fortunately we're back here, which is very convenient. So our magic line is right here. We've got all that stuff paid for, right? All this stuff.
So what year is that?
2017.
Oh.
All that stuff, we've got to go out for a general obligation bond.
Oh, yeah.
Probably totals $200 million, requires 60% plus one to pass. What's in here? Christine Grant Elementary, phase 2 and 3 at the high school, the next phase 2 and 3 at City High, phase 2 and 3 at West High. All that stuff is in here. Then you look down here and you go back over here and you say, okay, which elementary schools are we talking about here? So if you look down there and you bring it across, we're talking Lincoln, Man, West High, North High, High, City High, Shimmick, North Central, Northwest, Wickham, Wood, North, Liberty Phase 3, Kirkwood, Horn, Trek, Lemmy, Tate, Garner, Borlaug. So that's all that stuff down here is dependent on that bond passing. If this passes, all that's paid for, and there's money still remaining in this, and in 2017, the reason we picked this date was we have 2 bond obligations right now that will be paid off in 2017. So when we go back to the voters and ask them for more funding, the idea was, here's your property tax. Now all of a sudden your property tax is going to go down because those 2 bonds are paid. So we were going to ask them to replace that and go this much higher instead of having to ask them to go way up here. So that was the idea behind it. So we could actually go to the voters here and say to them, hey, will you replace that? Which would then give us this.
Because what we'll be doing is borrowing against guaranteed future income for the next
Right.
from 20% to 20%.
So what it would do is it
Multiple
essentially,
level.
it would allow us to do everything here without having to go out for that general obligation bond vote. So I guess I look at it from, So I look at it from,
Big news.
it is, it's huge news. So from that standpoint, one of the things that I asked Craig to do, he's gonna have them do it right now.
And property taxes go down for
Well,
when our bond indebtedness goes up.
Right, so you could do 2 things. You could keep property taxes flat and actually increase your capacity, which would offset anything that we would lose here. And so I asked Craig to have PFM, they're our financial analysts, go through and give us a cash stream. What's this worth to us? So that we know how much above and beyond the 200 million that we need or 180 that we need would this give us access to? Because I think what it does for the district long term is it allows us to complete the facility master plan and allows us to start, remember we're rolling, so we're always looking 10 years ahead. So, okay, we're gonna need another new elementary, we're gonna need some more work on the junior highs. We can keep planning for that. At some point in time, we will probably have to go out for a general obligation bond, but we'll have a huge track record of success behind us. We'll have more Twains and more Penns. We'll have done the same kind of thing at Kirkwood and Lucas, so I think by that point in time, we would be in a very different position to ask for support from the community than we are today, where we're just starting to get the ball rolling. So, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was ready to take up a pitchfork and torch and head to Des Moines. After meeting with him yesterday and driving back, I was less inclined to do that, and the more reflection I've had on it, I think I'm maybe a minority among some of the superintendents out there, because they're still saying, I want the whole thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love the whole thing, but I don't think there's much chance of the whole thing passing again. I don't think we will get 100% of SAVE the next time around, or if we do, we're gonna have to wait a long time to get it, because I don't think either side wants to take this up before the 2017 election, because if you talk to them, both of them think they're gonna win the Senate. And so the Republicans don't want to do anything until 2017, because if they win, they have both houses. The Democrats don't want to do anything unless they can get all of it for education. Well, that's not going to happen unless the House switches, and so they're kind of holding on. So my fear is that we get left in the lurch, and this black line just keeps marching towards 2029, and we don't have any access to those dollars except on a year-by-year basis, because we can't bond against them. So I'm cautiously looking at it now from the standpoint that going along with the governor may not actually be a bad idea here.
Well, the SAVE dollars help us with our facilities.
Yes, and
Did he have
technology.
anything to say about?
He did. He's still of the mindset that he wants the 2.45 for supplemental state aid, which is what he proposed last year, which actually I didn't think I was going to hear from him, because he spent all fall talking about the bird flu and talking about property values going down and talking about ag income going down. So I thought that was a precursor to you don't get as much supplemental state aid. He did come out and say, nope, I'm asking for 2.45. It's in there. That's what he's going to come out that when he addresses the legislature on the first day, he's going to ask for 2.45 for allowable growth. Now, can he get the House Republicans to go along with it? I don't know about that. The Dems who were here for the legislative forum on the 18th are much more along our lines of saying, hey, we need 6%. We'd settle for 4. 2.45 is not adequate. So we know where they are. So at least from that standpoint, he didn't back down. He didn't lower his estimate.
And what about this stuff with the property tax, carrying some of the burden in it?
Yeah, there's so much of the funding has shifted towards the state and away from the property tax, and that makes us so much more beholden to them, to the state, because that mix of how much you get locally and how much you get from the state has almost literally flip-flopped from 66-33 to 33-66 in percentages, and that makes it much tougher, because now we're at their mercy. If they give us the money, great. If they don't, it's not like we can raise it locally with property taxes. So he hasn't indicated any interest in going back and moving backwards and shifting any of it to property taxes. Or are you talking about the commercial property tax? Because there's a residential and the commercial.
Well, I thought that there was something that came through.
About the residential property tax?
Residential.
Yeah, there's a group of legislators and advocates that are saying that we ought to go back to more of it being property tax based as opposed to state formula. The property poor districts are not interested in that.
Right.
So you think about Davenport, Sioux City, Waterloo, because if that happens, their property, when you look at our property taxes, I know people complain ours are high, but you look at theirs and they're here compared to ours. And they can't pass bonds, which is why for some of them this looks really attractive. Because we could go out and we at least have a chance to pass a bond. We'll have to work at it, but I don't think it's it's not a guarantee we get it, but it's also not a guarantee we don't. A lot of those communities, it's a guarantee they don't get it. Sioux City, they're not getting a bond passed. Davenport, Waterloo, there's no way they could get 60% of the people to vote for a property tax increase. So, from that standpoint, I don't think you're going to see that shift, just because some of those property poor districts aren't interested in it. Some of the property rich ones, which are actually farming communities, are fine with it, because their millage rates are below ours. So,
I
yeah.
forget where 13A1.
Yeah.
Okay. And some of them are up closer to.
Oh, 20.
20.
Yeah. And then you go to like an Okoboji and some places like that. they're
It's
up
like
to 7.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
Because their valuation is so ridiculously high.
Yeah, on a per pupil basis, it's through the roof.
Right.
So, like I said, I went in thinking that it was gonna be a half an hour wasted time with him. I didn't come out as positively disposed as I am right now, but, the joy of living 2 hours away from Des Moines is I had nothing else to think about for 2 hours but this.
Can I just say that your demeanor in our conversation 5 minutes after you walked out of his office versus your demeanor 3 hours after you walked out of his office was night and day.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I had a lot of time to think about it. So, we had agenda setting literally right after it. I walked out, walked downstairs, and was on the phone with these guys. So, my blood pressure was still elevated.
So interesting news to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really may change the advocacy at the state because, in all honesty, the governor needs us. So he's going to have to advocate. I think that's why the 245 is still on the table with him. Because if he doesn't push for that, he knows he's not going to get us to support him. So now the them, I think, becomes the House Republicans. It used to be that them was the governor and the House Republicans. I think it's the House Republicans now because he knows he needs education to help out with this.
Interesting.
So, like I said, I'm jury's still out for me, but that's kind of where I'm at right now on it.
Just on a side note, I do still hate education being a political football.
Don't you won't get any disagreement from me on that one. If they would actually set the fiscal year 17 and 18 budgets within the first 30 days and then talk about this, that'd be wonderful. I'd be all for that. So that's my update for
Things
you.
could fly.
Update for you on advocacy. We are at the next DPO meeting. We're going to run through that exercise with them on funding priorities. So we'll have some feedback from them. We've got a couple of PTOs that are interested in doing it too. Principals talked to them about holding off and letting the DPO do it first so that their representative gets a chance to go through it because then they can help facilitate it when they come back to the PTO. We don't have our days at the Capitol set yet. So I've got an email into to Lou to ask him about that.
I'm gonna crack something.
We've waffled around. In past years, there were years we went really early, and then it seemed like it was too early because it drug on forever. There were years that we went later, and it probably was too late because they'd already reached their impasse. So it's really hard to figure out where to go. I usually talk to Margaret and see if she's got any recommendations for us, whether we should go early or late. Last year, I thought she put us pretty much on target for being right in the middle where there was some impact. So I'll talk to Lou and Margaret and see if they've got a recommendation for us.
I know the IASB has a Storm the Hill day on like
February
for 8
9th.
or 9th, something like that.
Yeah.
I just got it in the mail
And
yesterday.
it almost feels too early based on the last couple of years, but
Maybe not.
yeah, you don't know.
Maybe the pressure's on to set education funding in a timely fashion this year.
I think there's quite a bit
When
of
has the pressure not been on?
yeah.
I mean, maybe there's motivation this being an election. Yeah. The other thing that I want to touch base on was we did have our first legislative forum here at the ESC with our locally elected representatives on December 18th. Let's see, we had somebody from Clear Creek,
Just
we
gonna look
had
it up.
somebody from West Branch, we had somebody from Solon, then we had Mary Masher.
We had Mid Prairie. too.
Mid-Prairie, yep. We had Mary Masher, Kinney,
Trying to find it.
Dvorsky. No, was that it?
We had
Yeah.
Joe Bolcom said yes but didn't make it. Mary was there. Sally was there.
Sally wasn't there.
Oh no, that's right. She said yes but didn't make it either. I've got him down for who came and who didn't. Kevin was there. He'd said no, but he was there.
Yep.
And
Mary and Bob.
yeah, Mary and Bob and Kevin were the only three that were there.
So, Kevin, we didn't I mean, because things hadn't started yet, we just basically asked we tried to get take the temperature of what's going on in Des Moines. And Mary usually does a great job of kind of summarizing what to look up for, what pitfalls are ahead. They were all talking about that 245 number.
Yep.
They were throwing that around as far as the modicum of increased funding. But we expressed our concern about unfunded mandates, especially our particular board action regarding sending a letter of distress about the smarter balance assessments. And Kevin Kinney said perhaps the most poignant quote of the day, which is pay or delay.
Pay or delay.
So when there's mandates coming and there's no funding, then you either pay for the mandate or delay the mandate until there's funding planned for it. And so I thought that
He's
was.
telling us to do that?
No, he was telling us.
No, he was saying that
but it was
if they're
something-
not going to pay, then they
Then
should
we
delay.
delay.
That should.
Okay.
They should delay,
That should maybe be our message.
Yeah, we like that. We like the idea that, hey, if you're not going to actually give us the money for the mandate,
Right.
if it's unfunded, then we shouldn't be required to do it until you pay for it. Because we got a lot of unfunded mandates, and actually one of the things that I'm working right now is through the UEN, let's see if we can compile a master list of what we consider to be unfunded mandates. Because Kevin said, hey, if you give us that magic list, we might be willing to go into the legislature and delay requirement that you implement those if there's no funding stream attached to it. That'd be a huge plus for us. We spend a lot of time, energy, and effort on those things that they don't pay for. So we're working on that with the UEN right now to see if we can compile that list.
It was a fairly quick meeting. I mean, the session hasn't started yet.
They usually last about an hour. We try to contain them to an hour.
Yeah.
Did I give you guys a history on that? You guys know we meet on Friday afternoon. We used to meet on Saturday at noon. There's a League of Women Voters Forum the next day. And so it used to be the chamber breakfast in the morning, the League of Women Voters Forum, and then ours afterwards. And attendance was horrible. Attendance by educators was horrible. Attendance by legislators was horrible. They'd been there for 5 hours. They were ready to go home. They had family stuff going on. And so we would very rarely have more than 2 legislators present. We were usually the only district there. So we actually surveyed the legislators and said, what would work better for you? And they said Friday afternoon would work well. So then we surveyed the schools, and the Johnson County schools said, yeah, we'll commit to Friday. And so we usually get 5 or 6 districts here now, where we usually only got ourselves before. And we usually get, and this was low for us, we usually get 5 or 6 legislators. So that forum works out pretty well. Joel Bolcom likes to run a tight ship, so when Joe's here, he comes at 4 and leaves at 5. The meeting's over because he packs up. Time to go. So, but it's worked out really well for us.
So that's what we're on the lookout for right now. We basically thought that we as a committee should be up to snuff considering the session hasn't quite yet started. We have, about 10 days, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 9 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything to add before we move on? Lori, Natasha? Nabaduda Day. All right, so quick strike advocacy. Following up from last time, we had a discussion about going to the DPO and talking about film ideas.
Yeah, so I put out a request for a filmmaker, and were you there, Steve, when I did that? Oh, you had left. No.
Oh, I had to leave, yes. So I
Yeah,
missed
so
it.
after you left, I asked if anybody
Was
had
it
any
Wes, right?
contacts.
Yeah.
And there were a couple people that spoke to me afterwards, and nothing's materialized from it yet, but I think that is because of the holidays and people being busy. But potential for a couple people that might maybe be willing to help us create some sort of video. And I told them that we would need to meet with them to give them more direction. But my initial request was that I'd like to kind of keep it less directed towards just the Iowa City School District and more general to class size. When you have large class size, this is what happens, this is what it looks like, this is how education changes. and so that it could be transferable to anywhere in the state. And because I do think that if people view a video as coming out of Iowa City, just, Iowa City's agenda,
Based on my reception on Monday, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So.
It was me and Kim Reynolds and Linda Fandel. It felt like walking into hostile territory.
They sanitized their hands after they shook hands with you.
They were cordial. They were
Okay.
cordial.
Why do they hate us?
All I know is here's what the governor said. Well, I went to school in Iowa City. And I thought, that sounded like kind of a pejorative. I'm not sure that was actually like, hey, I went to school in Iowa City.
Yeah. So I looked back at my notes from the Charles City thing, and that's exactly how Charles City had framed their student video, or their videos, was how it impacts students, how it impacts the classroom. I think that's a good way to do it, especially if we look at it from how it impacts the classroom, not just, as you said, in the ICCSD. I also checked out, I didn't have this information with me at the last time when we discussed this, but they were able to get, I think it was 25,000 views of their video on Facebook.
Really?
Now,
That's a lot of views.
they gained the help by getting their story about the film out to the local news media, and Bruce County, which isn't just local, that's regional.
Right.
He talked about it, and suddenly it was. They also talked about updating their Twitter handles for the legislators to be tweeting from our district to the legislators, and not just the ones that are our legislators, but the legislators that are
Sure.
perhaps less friendly to education. Making sure that we are tweeting them. Neither do I, but we do, the district
The
does.
district does.
I know we talked briefly about possibly having slips to see legislators. They did point out that in the House it's yellow and the Senate it's pink.
Yeah, and I don't know, that was one thing I still don't have an answer on, is can we use different slips if they're the right colors? Or do we have to use the slips that they have? Because the guy who's the sergeant at arms there, especially the guy in the House, the lead guy, he's pretty,
I'd say we just ask
Directive.
Chucktown, ask
Yeah.
Charles City, because they had it down. I mean, the legislators that they spoke with that received their cards were actually, they commented, they were impressed that they had pre-printed cards that an individual from the Charles City School District is,
works for me.
it's actually stood out. And then they remembered talking to Charles City.
Sure.
So
So,
did they speak to legislators that were not their legislators?
Oh yeah, you can talk to anybody. They
So
have to
that-
be
that's-
willing to
and
come
that's
out
where
to
they
talk
use
to
these
you.
cards.
I think that's how they did it.
Because I've used people before Cecil Dolacek is not our rep, but he can be pretty influential in the education committee, and so I had somebody who knew Cecil, and so she actually went with me, and we both wrote on the card. I didn't want him to get ambushed and come out and discover I was out there, because he might not have been happy about that. So we both put our names on there, and he came out and talked. Didn't agree with me, but he came out and talked to me. So one step in the right direction.
So, I just didn't have those notes with me the last time we had that conversation, so I just wanted to pull that forward if anybody else has.
And
anything to
those
add.
would be for us to use on the day we all go?
Yeah.
Is that what we're thinking?
That, or, yeah.
Or to have,
Or any other time that you're there.
if we can get other people to go?
I sometimes have to go there for other reasons, and I know that Latasha does as well. I think, I don't know how much. Do you have interest? Do you have
Mm-mm.
interest in one?
No, not much.
It's always funny, Latasha, when you have to show up and say, I'm here today for this.
I'll never go to that building. If I don't have to. Parking is horrible.
So, okay. Anything else to add in quick strike, or, I like the Twitter idea, I really do, just, at Representative Smith. Hey, did you know? And linking, sending just sending a link to the video once we get her, if we get it done and up online,
Yep.
or at least the even information that we
Well,
have.
and Kristen can definitely help us out with that Twitter piece.
I mean, even
The brochure, or cowboy cards, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just that information.
Yep.
so. Cool. All right, anything else to add before we head on from quick strike advocacy to, is that it?
I think that's it.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Agenda items? The legislative session will be in full swing the next time we plan on meeting. I suspect we'll have more to talk.
I suspect we'll have a lot to talk about.
We might have a day on the Hill planned at that point.
We might have a date for that, maybe even before that. If we do, I'll definitely get that out to you so that you know what that is in advance.
We'll have feedback from at least one listening post and be able to maybe, probably a couple days before the Northwest Junior High listening post, make any shifts if we want to, based on how Grant would.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I guess we will. Oh, no, we won't. I'm looking at the wrong month.
So should be
Yep.
roughly Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, February 2nd.
Fascinated with Groundhog's Day today, right?
And, Latasha, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip over this during the listening post. I wanted to know how the Friday, December 18th meeting went at Pheasant Ridge.
Oh, I mean, I thought it went well. There was quite a few families there. Lori was there, Chris Levin came,
Good.
and Kingsley came, which was really helpful.
Yeah,
He
that was
able
very
to
helpful.
Good.
Kingsley was great.
Give some directions about some of the equity issues that were going on, so at least pass his card out so people have a contact.
Good.
Because they didn't know who to talk to about a lot of the things that are happening. So some of them are bus issues. A lot of them, it was a nice portion on bus issues that are happening. I'm trying to think.
Well, they talked about, two things that I remember were ELL.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Concern that kids are being taken out of class,
yeah.
missing class time for ELL. And then they talked about whether it's better to just do a complete language immersion sort of situation or have an interpreter there when somebody comes in and they don't know the language. And they talked amongst themselves about what they thought was better with that.
Mhm.
And then the other thing they talked about was Muslim holidays.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah, you know,
we
that,
can make some-
I think that came up afterwards then, because I had some dialogue with them after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it. It's like other kids don't have to miss information and make it up when we have.
Yep.
We say holiday break. We know it's Christmas break. Let's just tell the truth. We just changed the name because it's politically correct, but they have to make up that time where
Yeah.
other kids are able to rest and not have the stress of I need to come and make up that time. And it's considered an excused absence, but I think
Right.
some of them were reporting that, like at the first one, that they couldn't get perfect attendance because it was considered an absence when they were only leaving specifically for religious
Yeah.
purposes, not because they were missing school. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like they missed school, but
Yeah.
if it was during winter break or something like that, it wouldn't be counted against them to celebrate their
because
religious holiday.
our attendance tally system doesn't have like excused went to the doctors or excused sick
says absence.
or excused religious holiday. It just says unexcused or excused. You're one or the other. And so because that was the conversation I had with the one mom, is you can't differentiate between this is a religious observance and this is some health
Is
related.
there a way to
or I'm
do
on
that,
vacation.
though?
We don't have it right now in the system.
I mean, I
don't-
wonder, like,
Yeah, I
could
don't
the
know if Power
school keep
School.
track if they know that they have kids? Because, I mean, it might be only like 20, 25 kids. And if they look at them and they have more than one absence, then okay, they're not perfect attendance. But if it ends up being like 5,
You know,
can't we just look at that?
well, they must have some way to track it because parents can excuse for up to 10 days. And we have had some parents in the past who've abused that with taking their kids on vacations.
Mhm.
And then, because I can remember having to have that conversation with a couple principals about, hey, this is gonna be a really difficult conversation. I gotta call Brian, because his kid's now been absent 15 times. They're all excused, but we know where he's going. You know, he's taking the kids to Europe, they're down in Australia, they're wherever they're at, but they're pulling them out of school in an excessive amount. And so I know that they keep track of those, but I don't know how they do that.
If my computer died, I'll take a look at Power School and see.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, it's gotta be some way to track
Right.
that, so that those, I just think, if that's something
Yeah.
a kid is trying
Well-
to earn, and what the parents were hurt about was their kids were denying their own religious beliefs so that they could
Get a perfect.
get kind of this Western perfect, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Because, and
Yeah.
that was like really hard for them, because they're just like, they're going against their own faith to
Yeah.
try to
Sure.
meet the school standards. So.
Well, and Cedar Rapids also uses Power School, and they've got a fairly sizable minority population
Yeah.
too. So I can't imagine it's not an issue up there also. So
Yeah.
this Power School might be able to put a fix in that would not benefit just our kids, but all the kids that are served by the Greenwood AEA.
Sure. Well, and I mean, this is something, again, just because it's back-to-back committee meetings, this is something that maybe if we don't, is that something that might even require or could be helped along by policy?
It may not, we may not need to do that because they're already, from a policy standpoint, they're already excused for those religious observances.
Right, but if it said
So-
that if, well, okay, my thing was that if excused absences are for observance of religious holidays,
I think we may be able to just code it Power School and just bypass all of it.
that would be awesome, because
Yeah.
that just puts people at ease.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it just would
Mhm.
be the right thing to do, to be honest. I mean, 'cause I could just imagine like my child wants to participate
Mhm.
in this, but they can't. Well, they can, but they feel like compelled that they can't because of this
Yeah.
other standard that
And
is.
there are some things that I always look at it and say, what do we have control of, what don't we have control of? This is one we have control of, because one of the ones we struggle with, and you may not have heard about this yet just because it hasn't been an issue for us, but we always try to, if we can figure out when Rosh Hashanah is, we always try to have that be the City West football game, because we can, if it falls on a Friday, because we can move our game to Thursday, because you can change games if both teams will agree to it.
And so
But if
what-
it's any other school, we've never been able to get them to agree to move the game. The only time it works is when it's City playing West.
That's why we used to have
That's
it
why
on
we'd have it on
Thursdays.
Thursday nights, because we would work hard to get that to be the City West game. We'd move it to Thursday night, then it wouldn't conflict with the Jewish high
The
holidays.
observance of
Yeah, so
that.
that's why you'd see them on
Wow.
Thursdays. It doesn't always work, and when it doesn't, then our
hear
Jewish
about it.
kids have to pick, do I play football or do I follow the religious observance?
Yeah.
And you're right, that's not something we want to put kids in a position they have to choose to do. Do I let down my parents and my faith, or do I let down my team? Well, that's a great
Right.
position for a kid to be in. So. Yeah, let me see if we
That's
can
interesting.
make some
Yeah.
progress on that.
Yeah, there's a code that we could. Wow. Well, that's good. I hadn't heard anything, you know, we went from the legislative afternoon to the listening post at Pheasant Ridge, and then in break. So I hadn't heard anything. The email chat has been kind of low for the last few weeks. But it's back now, so. All right, awesome. So, okay, so we're talking about Day on the Hill, listening post feedback. And this is what got me thinking about was less formal listening post ideas. Does anybody have anything on the radar that's opportunities for us?
I think-
Invitations or?
Well, I haven't heard anything. I think it'll be interesting, and then I don't know which committee this goes into, but with the Every Student Succeeds law, I don't know if
Yeah.
we were supposed to get an update on that at some meeting, or was it this
The
meeting?
education committee seems
or-
to do that.
Yeah, I was planning on doing it the next day.
Okay, I just,
The 19th?
Walk you through that PowerPoint.
I wasn't
but,
sure, but I just, because of my work with the state of Iowa, just knowing that there's that child sexual abuse prevention is
Yep.
in that, and that the funding is allowed now to be able to address that, and I didn't know if that was gonna be covered in what we currently do to address child sexual abuse in our district, if we do anything. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and that's something I probably have to ask Susie and Amy about from a funding Steve.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I have it, which Title II funding, Title IV-A funds for
Because
it.
what they did is they took some of those funds and they said that we can now pool them. That's not the technical term that they use, but that's what the term I would use, is you can pool some of those funds, which changes how your requirements for record keeping and spending,
Mhm.
which is kind of nice because it's supposed to give us more flexibility.
I just know that's out there, and that's a huge legislative thing as well with the child abuse checkoff
Yep.
and that kind of thing, and trying to keep that. That's my world though, so, but
Just
important
cross
stuff.
over.
It's important stuff. I mean, we have the numbers. We have the numbers. I mean, some of our counties are much higher, but we do have the numbers that is an issue. It's an unaddressed issue, and so.
Is there any issue with the Medicaid modernization and mental health services?
Yeah, no, we just had that conversation. We're still waiting for some of the regs to come down.
I know, that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's taking so long.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and so we're not sure. First we were told no, then we were told maybe, then we were told, well, we're not gonna tell you
Will
anything.
there be, I mean, the question I guess would be, will we have the right providers? Will there be a
Well,
network?
one of, probably the biggest challenge is not even gonna be, on our end, it's gonna be, for the kids, because now all the providers have to get certified with all 4 of the organizations as opposed to 1. So if you think about that, Mecca, Four Oaks, all the rest of them, every single provider in that organization has to get certified through each of the 4 organizations instead of just the one that does it right now. So we think there's gonna be a big dip in student access to mental health for a period of time until the Four Oaks and the rest of those, the Meccas that are providing that lower, no-cost opportunity for them, get all their providers certified. So we're a little nervous about what that might mean for our kids in terms of being able to get in and see a professional. So that's probably the biggest obstacle we see in front of us. I mean, we'll have coding issues on the inside that we have to deal with from Medicaid, and we'll have some implications for our own that we provide inside school, you know, because we do the referrals outside, and then the inside we prefer, just like those one parent said for ELL, we prefer not to do it inside if we can, because that means they're out of class. But that doesn't work for every kid because transportation's a barrier and things like that. So some of it we do inside, and that'll be a little bit of a challenge for us from the billing standpoint. We'll get over that.
One of the things that I wanted to maybe ask if there was interest to put on the next agenda and shoot it down. I don't think so, but previously, like with the previous board, 2 years, it seemed that Chris and myself, and to some extent, I think Tuet would occasionally write a guest opinion or a letter to the editor that would appear in the local media. And I think we have more energy for that now than with this current board. I've seen, I think that it's.
Tosh just wrote one.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Yeah.
I just saw it.
They always ask me to write
And it was in the Gazette. I just read it. It's good.
Which, and it was fine that you didn't reach out to us, but I did think it was nice of Chris to give us a heads up on that when he wrote his.
I didn't think that I had to because they weren't asking me from the school board.
Yeah, no, and you
'Cause I'm on the
didn't have
writers.
to.
I'm on the writers group, and
Yeah.
so.
I
it
was just
more-
gonna mention that it was, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice, but what I was gonna say is that maybe, since there seems to be more energy for that, I would love to just maybe put on the agenda if there's an interest in coming up with like a schedule or a planned, because I think if all of us or those of us who want to write are doing it on a routine basis, then, you know, it's less spurts here and there. We have a lot of things to discuss and a lot of things where I think that we could look more as a team that's coordinating and say, okay, you're gonna write the one on this, great, I'll write one on this. Or, you know, Chris just wrote a summary of all the things we have ahead on our calendar for this next year. And I think it would be nice to like use that summary And again, I don't want to talk this now. I want to just see if there's interest in putting this on the agenda for next time. We can't talk it now. But if there's interest, great. If not, I'll shut up. Because we technically can't talk it because it's not on our agenda today. If there's no interest, that's fine.
In writing articles to the paper, you just have no idea how much energy it took me just to write that one.
You wrote one last year.
And I went past the deadline.
When you're past the deadline, you know, because they tell you.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I know this is too late. They're like, no, we can make it work. But I mean, I'm
think
not
it's good.
opposed to it. I don't think I have a problem.
Well, I'm just talking, can we discuss it? Because we can't discuss
That's
it
what I'm
today.
saying.
But let's discuss.
I don't know if
Let's
I
discuss
want to
it.
even discuss it. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, that's fine.
I just think it might be worth the discussion.
Sure, we can discuss it. I can tell you no next week.
Okay.
Whenever the next.
That's fine. We can't make any decisions or actually discuss it
Okay.
because of the overwhelming numbers of the members of the public sitting here. It'll be
Sorry, public.
it will be
John,
charged that we talk something
PQ.
behind closed doors, so we will talk it when it is on the official agenda.
Sure.
How's that true? All right, anything else to add to the agenda for next time? Follow up with any film feedback, if there's feedback from the filmmaker.
Yeah.
Or
and-
ideas.
And, you know, I mean, it's something we need to get rolling pretty quick if we can find somebody to do it. So I don't know if we need to be available to meet with them if
Cool.
are lucky enough to find somebody who would do it for us. I would just love it if we could just get some kind of snappy video with, you know, graphics and, you know, maybe, I don't know. Those
Did we
videos
check
where
with-
people draw and have graphs
Oh, yeah.
and, you know,
Did we
all of that
talk with
business.
PATV?
Yeah.
Say again?
What's
Did we
that?
talk with PATV?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, they have some really great folks over there that would do it for free, and it could be on public access as well as it could be, and they use digital now.
And they got a YouTube channel too.
Mm-hmm, they do.
Oh, shebang.
Yes.
Let's use government resources to our advantage.
It's free, it's YouTube. I mean, it's YouTube.
We're all taxpayers, really.
That's true. We have.
Contribute to public
Yeah.
access funding.
So, I
Okay.
think they could be a really
That's a great area.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably would have you come in with an idea of what that looks like, and I don't know if you have ideas in your head about the type of video that you want to
Do they
put
go
out.
out to do video?
No, they'll go wherever.
Yeah, I think they will. I
mean,
think
they'll
they've
go
actually got a
wherever.
mobile crew
Yeah,
with the equipment that does that.
they will just bring it out. I mean, they've done tons of stuff for us.
Cool.
Plays and all kinds of stuff that the community wanted to hear or see. So, I mean, I just think you need to talk to him. I mean, James Mims will be a good person
Okay.
to contact over there. He's all into tech savvy stuff, so
Mhm.
Cool.
he would be a good place to start and can give you some ideas. I mean, it might help if, I don't know, we need to generate those ideas of what that looks like, of what that video looks like. I mean, I have an idea in my head, but I don't know if there's something that the DPO folks will come up with instead, so. You know, I don't know if it, I mean, because they're gonna want to know, like, are we scanning a crowd of kids? What story? I think they're gonna want you to come up with a storyline so that they know what to.
Well,
video.
what I was hoping is that somebody else would have more
Oh.
experience with it,
Creative.
and that we could just kind of say, this is our idea, and they would be able to do it.
So
Because I don't really know, you know,
I mean, you could just do something simple. Is if the focus is about large class sizes, you can just have them do a B-roll of a large class that's
Mhm.
really large, and then you could even do it like where they're going from student each row back, and a student is like the teacher. It can scan with the teacher. Say she's teaching something, and the first student understands, the second student does. But by the time you get back to the back row, the kid's like, and I don't know what they're talking about on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you know. I mean, you could just do something very simple like that, is how much information is being lost because this information didn't get all the way back to the back of the class. Or I don't know, whatever. As DPO people, they probably have more creative energy to come up with something.
Yeah, I'll see what they say.
Oh, I was gonna try and pull up,
Can you send that link instead?
the Charles City.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. It wasn't Bruce Downing, it's Ron Steele.
Oh,
Ron Steele. But,
Bruce Downey, you retired? He's still there? He's been there since.
yeah, he's still
I
there.
think he is. isn't
He is, yeah.
I'll try and find the link to the video.
It might be helpful to send to everybody.
I'm willing to bet that Charles City has a Facebook page with the video, so I'll try and find that. Or at least I'll email Charles City and say, hey, send me the link.
They'll probably do that too. Weren't they one of the ones that were there when we were at the Capitol last year?
Yes, they were,
The subcommittee.
except they spent a lot of time complaining about what they were gonna have to cut.
Yeah, I know.
Which frustrated me.
Not the best message, but yeah, but they were there. We've been to some subcommittee meetings, which are really kind of interesting, because it's just like going to somebody's kitchen table. They literally, they don't even meet in a room, they just meet in a part of a room, and you just go stand over their shoulder,
It's like us here in a whole crowd standing
around you, so, yeah, it's kind of
It's the
interesting.
weirdest thing.
It is kind of weird. If you haven't been to it before, I had to explain to these guys, that's the subcommittee meeting. They're like, what?
And they say, now we're gonna take comments from the public.
And then you talk,
And then they go around,
you know?
and then they reconvene the meeting. It's the weirdest thing. But, yes, they were there, but they gave a
Yeah.
talk at the IASB convention in November. I can reach out to them
All right.
and find out that information. I will gladly hear that. Anything else to add?
And you probably can just Google or YouTube it.
I am having a tough time right here, right now. Sorry.
I found it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe you can share it with me.
No problem. I can do that right now.
I'm not getting it here.
Well, there was a response from one of the representatives that had a link to the video so that people know what she was talking about.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I spent a lot of time online. What's your name? Sorry. I just couldn't put that.
Okay, so that said, motion to.
Need a
adjourn.
motion?
Yeah,
Motion to adjourn.
There you go.
second. All in favor?
I was like third. I really had a moment. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say.